Okay, part 2 of the Sermon on the Mount. And I started with a story called A Trustworthy Person. A fellow went into a fried chicken place and bought a couple of chicken dinners for himself and his date late one afternoon. The young woman at the counter inadvertently gave him the proceeds for the day, a whole bag of money, much of it cash, instead of fried chicken. After driving to their picnic site, the two of them sat down to open the meal and enjoy some chicken together. They discovered a whole lot more than chicken, over $800. But he was unusual. He quickly put the money back in the bag. They got back into the car and drove all the way back. Mr. Clean got out, walked in, and became an instant hero. By then the manager was frantic. The guy with the bag of money looked at the manager and said, "I want you to know I came by to get a couple of chicken dinners and wound up with all the money. Here." Well, the manager was thrilled to death. He said, "Oh, great, let me call the newspaper. I'm going to have your picture put in the local paper. You're one of the most honest men I've ever heard of." To which the guy quickly responded, "Oh, no, don't do that. You see, the woman I'm with is not my wife. She's somebody else's wife." And so he's trustworthy in one aspect, but not another. So how does this man's behavior illustrate someone who seems to be living a moral life on the outside, but is really not a trustworthy person? Well, of course, the obvious is on the outside, he's given away money that he could just kept, and he's giving it back to the people. But on the inside, he's on a date with somebody else's wife. So he's lying and doing other things. So that's not good. And so that moves us to our lesson for today. It's about, I'm sleepy today. Where am I? Lesson pages 44 through 46. Alright, yeah, because it's for Matthew 5, verses 17 through 20, the law on murder, adultery, divorce, and oath. And this is about the fulfillment of the law. And I got a Bible underneath this camera. I'm going to lift it out real quick. So lower the camera a bit. Matthew number 5. Matthew number 5. I'm feeling alive. Alright, starting at verse 17. "But do not think that I have come to abolish the law and the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. I tell you the truth, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law, until everything is accomplished. Anyone who breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven, but whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." And those are some harsh words by Jesus there. And so what was Jesus' view of the Old Testament laws and prophets? All of them were important. He didn't come to change the law. And so many people think the Old Testament God and the New Testament God are completely different, but you really notice that they're both the same. God made the law. Jesus actually made it harder, as we're going to see. And it's not because we can follow it, but just show us how much we need Him. And so what role does obedience to the law play in establishing the least and greatest in God's eyes? Well, if we obey the law and teach others to obey the law, God will think that we are great. Well, He knows we're great anyway, because He made us. But now I'm being proud. God loves us no matter what we do. But He will consider us better people if we obey His commandments and teach others to do the same. Not say, "Oh, it doesn't matter, God's going to save everybody." No. If you really love God, you're going to do what He wants. And so I'm not going to change to any of the other passages. I'm just going to move on. Because the book's asking me to do that. It's like, no. Alright, murder. This is the passage where Jesus says, You've heard it once said that do not murder, but even if you're just mad at somebody, you're still murdering them, or hating them, or calling them worthless. So, what are 3 types of attitude murder that Jesus mentioned? One is simply being angry with someone. Other is calling them a fool. And other one's calling them a raka, which is basically you're not even worthy to live. And so those are 3 types of inner murder. So what does Jesus say should take place before worship? We should try to, if we're at church and we're about to go in, we should really try to call up a friend and try to make up with them before we can go any farther. And the results of uncontrolled anger, well, if you're so uncontrolled, you may actually end up murdering someone and be thrown into jail and even into hell. So yeah. The next part is adultery. It says don't commit adultery, but Jesus says even if you're just thinking about somebody lustfully, you're still committing adultery. And this is the kind of questions like, oh, how far can we go before we actually do it? Well, if you're actually thinking that question, you've already committed adultery. And believe me, I think everybody does this now. It's not an excuse, but they do. So, and Jesus' point in verses 29 and 30 is that we should deal drastically with sin as it is necessary. He's not teaching that we should actually cut off our hands or our eyes so that we won't sin. He's not condoning self-mutilation. And they say even a blind person can lust. But how would you put 29:30 into modern language? Well, if your eyes cause you to sin, go sell your laptop and don't go on the internet ever again. You know? Because it's like, I remember one time someone irked me by saying, there was someone who sets up a desktop computer in the middle of Starbucks. And he's like, how can you do that and not accidentally step into porn? I think there's only one time I've ever accidentally stepped into porn. And you have to actually look for it to find it. So, and that was only one time that I was on it that it was an accident. And so you don't have to go on there. There's plenty of websites on the computer that you don't have to go on to porn. You can go on I Can Has Cheeseburger and laugh at Little Kitty. You can go on Cake Rex and laugh at stupid cakes. There's all kinds of fun sites up there. You don't have to go into porn. And so another thing is I will sell my car so I don't have to drive back past that stupid billboard every time with a naked girl on it. Or I'll take a different route so I don't have to pass a novelty store. There's all kinds of things you can do so that you don't, or I won't talk to a person again because they'll get me so aroused. Alright, and then he extends adultery discussion saying that somehow the Pharisees thought since Moses allowed people to get divorced, that means they could divorce their wives for any and every reason. If they burned the food one night, they could divorce her. If she wasn't hot anymore, they could divorce her. Jesus said that's terrible. That is not the idea of the law. We allow that because people are hard-hearted, and it may eventually, you can, maybe one will cheat on the other, or you'll be in an abusive relationship, and sometimes you do have to divorce, but you don't divorce just because, oh, we're not in love anymore, to put in modern terms, oh, we're just tired of each other now. No, you've made a commitment to the Lord. Unless he's cheating on you or beating you, you got to stay married to that person. And so, and even if there's adultery, you can still patch things up. I've seen that many times. But if it's not safe for you to be at home, definitely don't go home to a person who's beating you or your children. So, and sometimes that's easier said than done. So what do you think Jesus is saying about the sanctity of marriage? It means it should be kept. And see, many wonderful people, both parents and kids, have been through hurtful divorces. What action steps can you take that might keep divorce out of your own future marriage? So far, I haven't even been married, so but I think I just not jump into marriage. I mean, actually get to know the person before you marry them. Don't get physically involved too early, or at all. And see, there's no need for it. Maybe if you hug them every once in a while, that might not be bad. or kiss them on the cheek.